I was talking to my friend the other night, Dean Kramer. He's now the guitar player for Bret Michaels.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to ask Bud for you. I said, who was the biggest band that ever played at the Capitol Center? And you said Kiss. And you said they came off stage and they were crazy. Tell us about Kiss.
Oh,
well, you talking to Gene Simmons and all that before the show and all that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love Kiss. And in fact, it was one of my favorite. You talked about Cap Center. We went to the Cap Center. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. The Cap Center, this is my rock and roll era. And I was doing, a lot of stuff. And actually, I was going with Debbie and my wife. We went to the Cap Center for the Kick Show. And Barry Richards was my partner when we did shows and this and that. So we were on the floor, and we were like 14 rows from the stage for Kiss. And I look, and 2 rows above me on the floor is Barry Richards and his kid. And I mean, we're still good friends to this day, but Barry is waving to me like, I've got seats 2 rows in front of you. Well, we took our son, Zach, who was like 9, 10 years old. That's why Debbie and I were there. We had taken him. And Debbie brought tissue. And before the show started, she got Zach and put tissue in both of his ears because we knew it was going to be loud.
That's funny.
That's the one thing we knew. Okay, it gets funnier. So like I said to you, she gears up Zach with the cot and everything. And 2 rows ahead of us is Barry and his son, golly, I'm trying to remember now, but the older son, and he had babysat, that was like, and he's waving, okay, fine. Well, it starts, and have you ever seen a Kiss show? Okay, because there are a couple stories here, but it is so loud. I mean, and after this, I talked to Barry after the show a couple days later. Yeah. He said, oh, geez. He said, I couldn't hear for 2 days. And I said, yeah, well, we were fine. Because my little guy, Debbie had taken care of him. And I guess she had something. When I did Ted Nugent, I did him at the Baltimore Civic Center. I think I still have them. He gave sonic earplugs to everybody working.
Wow.
Because Ted was so loud. And Kiss was the same way. Now, the second page of Kiss, like I said, if you know anything about Kiss, Kiss initially flew commercial. And then they would get to the venue. That's why I know him from this part. They would get to the venue, go backstage, and they all had makeup kits, and they'd put on their makeup backstage before the show. They did not get super big to where they could charter planes and and then
so they did their own makeup at first.
They always did their own makeup.
Okay. Wow.
But what it was, in the early days, they flew commercial. Mm-hmm. They would land, like in Johnstown. That's what we're going to talk about. They would land in Johnstown, the airport, and then we had a limo for them, part of the rider, and then they would go to the venue, backstage, and then they would, like, Gene had the kabuki, whatever. And they were very, very nice. And later, once the Silver Live album came out, it exploded, and then it was, they put on their makeup on the plane, and the whole mystique was you never saw Kiss without their makeup. You didn't know what they did. They had an album later on, Kiss Unmasked, and that was, a big deal.
Yeah.
But it was backstage, and it was Easter. The date was before Easter Sunday. Mm-hmm. We were going to do the date. I had tickets to fly back to Nashville Airport, and then I was living in Gaithersburg. Mm-hmm. So we're backstage, and I'm sitting there just shooting and talking, and actually what had happened, Dick Klotzman, the promoter for the date, had people in and decorated backstage. And it was like dolls and this and that. Mm-hmm. And it was Easter-themed bunny rabbits. And I looked at it, I thought, this is really nice, Yeah. And I'm talking to Gene. I don't think I really talked to Paul, but I talked to Gene. I found out later in that TV series, Family Jewels, that he had a son and a daughter. Uh-huh. And I don't remember how much we talked about kids and everything, but we had a lot of conversation. Yeah. So I said to Gene, I looked at the display that Dick had put up backstage with the dolls and the rabbits and I think candy and jelly beans and stuff. And I said, and Gene, very nice. And I said, we're going back home. Do you mind if I'm going to take a couple of these stuffies on the plane for my kids? Because I had Amanda, an older daughter. And he said, no, go ahead. And I said, oh, that's great. And we talked and that's that.
You don't still have them, do you? Because I want them.
No. All right. So everything's cool. We're sold out. It's at Johnstown Arena. And like I said, told you, I think, this is where the movie Slapshot was filmed in this hockey rink. We sold it out. In fact, in those days, with hockey rink, they had a hockey rink, of course, ice, and then they had boards that would lay, if they were at a concert, would lay down over the ice. And the thing I learned real quick from doing shows in the winter is to carry extra clothes and extra boots because it was cold and you could get sick and for a tour. So they go out on stage and it rocks. It's sold out. They come out and it's like different people. They're crazy.
Yeah, you said they were crazy when they came on stage. They fired up. Yeah.
They fired up. And I'm in the box office, and the manager of the Johnstown Arena, we're settling, and he gets with me, and he wants to, I got to see you, takes me backstage, and where this beautiful display was, it's been torched. Somehow they put it out, but I remember a big rabbit was set on fire. Other stuff was
who set it on fire?
It was Gene Simmons and the Kiss people.
That's funny.
And I had to pay for it.
Oh my word! And lucky they didn't burn down the whole place.
I know. That was the amazing thing. These guys went through a total metamorphosis. It went from Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley. Yeah. I think Peter was even in the group then. Because it was like maybe 73. Because the big record was the live album.
Yeah.
And then they had Beth, which was Peter's song. But I had to pay, I don't know, we put it into the settlement. They ultimately paid for it. But Kiss totally, it was, and I did a few, I met Debbie at a Kiss.
Yeah, you were telling me that. You met your wife.
Show.
Yeah.
And I did Kiss shows many, but in fact, Kiss played at Hammerjack's in the Unmasked tour.
Wow.
And
so you met your wife. I remember you told me that story. She was into photography a lot, right?
Yep. She was.
Where did you meet her at? What
backstage at the Kiss show, July 13th.
Where was that at? Capitol Center? Or was that
Baltimore Civic Center.
Okay, Baltimore Civic Center.
Yeah, because I had what had happened. Kiss was so crazy.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I was one of the people that could handle them.
Yeah.
So I was out with Seals and Crofts on that summer, those dates. But the 13th of July, I was off, and I was going to go straight to Philadelphia because on the 14th, we were doing the sport, whatever, the big arena in Philly. Seals and Crofts were. And they begged me to go to do Kiss on the 13th because the other guys couldn't handle them. So I said, okay, fine. And that's where I met my wife.
But you said that you got her backstage.
Yeah.
She was a photographer, and how did you guys hook up with that?
Well, I gave her a backstage photographer's pass because I had.
She was just standing there. Debbie was, or
she was standing outside the backstage.
Okay.
And I gave her, but she was, she's very pretty.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, I was only going to be here until that morning. I'd give her a backstage, and she had a camera.
You remember what year that was? Or?
Oh yeah, 1976.
Wow.
Yeah, and I still got the ticket from that show.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what we met.
Didn't one time Oprah was at one of the shows, and your wife Deborah got Oprah Winfrey in the show. What was that?
That was Baltimore Civic Center. And Oprah, God love her, she had just come to Channel 13. And we were, that was the Sean Cassidy show.
Okay, wow.
So, that's who was the head. It was sold out. So, we had the pit. And, of course, Debbie, by then, had backstage passes, photo pass. And we wear, they were. So, what happened was, they were hassling Oprah, and she had on a jean. If you remember, Faded Glory was at that time the big deal, designer jeans. And that's what she had. She had a designer jean jacket and designer jeans. But she didn't have a backstage pass, or they were hassling her about the pass she had. I don't remember. But Debbie was there, and she had an all access with Debbie. And Debbie went over to Oprah and gave her pass, so nobody would hassle her and nobody would question Debbie by this time because everybody, the security and everything, knew her anyway. And I was running that. So but then. After that, they had a press conference upstairs for Sean Cassidy. And obviously that was by pass only. And so Debbie was going up there, and she took Oprah, and Oprah got into the press conference.
Wow.
Well,
She wasn't even really famous then, really. I mean,
she had just come.
Yeah, that was her beginning of her career.
She had just come to Channel 13, and she and the guy from Channel 13 had that morning show. That was her start, I guess.
Yeah.
And so the other part of that was the caterers was Martin's West. Marty.
Yeah.
Okay. But Marty's son wanted to get in for the press conference. You know, the kid, she was a kid then, but the kids were like, you know, Sean Cassidy.
Yeah.
Like today,
teeny bopper groups, yeah.
Like there's some Taylor Swift, he was the Taylor Swift of that generation.
Gotcha.
And I came along, or Debbie came along, and we marched Marty, his son, into this press conference, which. Not big deal, but this was 70 something. But in 1979, May, Debbie and I got married. When we got married, we had our reception at Martin's West. And I remember they remembered, and I was negotiating the contracts with Fred, was the guy from the hall. And I wanted to know, menu this and how much. And he said, "Bud, you took care of us at Sean Cassidy. Don't worry about it. Everything will be great."
Wow, that's cool. That was neat. Yeah.
Well, the thing was cool. My dad and my brother came down, and his girlfriend came down from Oneonta for the wedding, and Debbie's, of course, her family is out in Howard County. And until my dad passed away, he always referred to that wedding reception as your party.
Wow, that's fun.
And it was.
Yeah,
but I have no idea. The food kept coming.
Wow.
And I have.
You had that connection. That's great. Wow.
It was the greatest. It was a party. I mean, it was, but it all went back to Martin's and his son getting in and being taken care of on that date. So that's how it went. Great memories and great people. You know, we just had a wonderful time.
Let's talk about the Alexander roller rink. Okay, you told me that you would drive Jim Croce and Jim Morrison to the gigs. You said you get high, do hash with Jim Croce in the car, and that Jim Morrison loved beer. Tell me the stories about that Pinto. Your first Pinto, you said it was a custom Pinto from the factory that you drove these guys.
Oh yeah, well it's all it's kind of involved. You got to go back. Jim Croce, God, I loved Jim. I mean, I was working for Dick Klotzman, and it must have been 71. Well, I don't know exactly when the plane crashed.
And there was no tour buses, so you had to take them, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing was, it was Jim and his wife, Ingrid. Mm-hmm. And I had done the tour, in fact, George Mason College, the one where there's a picture taken. And then I was doing stuff. Yeah, we had like a half a dozen dates to cover. And Jim and Ingrid and I talked about the best way to do these. And thought, hey, why not? We'll just drive and follow each other. And I said, if that's okay with you, Jim. He said, yeah. So we did. That's the plan. He had Ingrid in his car, and I had the Pinto, which I was new. I had an 8-track.
And you loved that car. You said it was custom. It was from the factory. It had leather seats. That
Yep.
Pinto was fancy, wasn't it?
Yep. Well, it was what it was. It was customized because most of the Pintos came with black interior, and I wanted tan, and there was some. Oh, and I wanted an 8-track because I had 8 tracks in those days. That was a big deal, and Jim Croce and Ingrid, we were great, and I remember we did a college date. That's what I'm talking. You're talking about a college date in the Carolinas. It was either North Carolina or South Carolina, and I remember with Jim. Jim loved hash, and I had it, and I brought it along, and we were sitting
That's funny.
up on a hill where he was going to play that night, and we were just talking and shooting the breeze. And he was just a wonderful guy. And then the next day, we had Frostburg. I remember we had to go. Somehow we went up to the college, and what we did is we decided, we were going to drive it from wherever we were. We were going up to Frostburg State, and we looked at a map. You got to remember, this is way back. I looked at the map, and there was a road in West Virginia, and you take the road up to West Virginia, and then it would cut over to Frostburg State, which was in Maryland. We thought, hey, that's a good way. Well, what we didn't know was in West Virginia, there's not a straight road, and all the roads are hilly.
Yeah, oh yeah, my dad's from Clarksburg, West Virginia. I know.
We got on these roads, and it took us, I don't know how many, and looked at the map, nothing.
Wow.
And it was brutal. But, he did it, we did it.
And you had to drive Jim Morrison to his game.
Well, Jim Morrison is another story, but this one, I was getting ready with Jim Croce to do the fall tour when I was driving to Baltimore, because Dick's office was in Baltimore, had the radio on, and it came over the radio that Jim and Murray was his partner guitar. That plane had gone down and crashed, and he was dead. And I think I remember crying. He was such a wonderful, wonderful guy. I think his son wound up being a musician.
Wow.
And I've talked to Ingrid on Facebook several times through the years.
Yeah.
But it was a big hole because he was just his songs were they're classic.
Just like when Stevie Ray Vaughan went down his color car.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
Yeah. Well, and that was what's his name? The guy, Bill Graham, went on that same flight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew. I did Bill. This is far off. Yeah. Bill Graham, Jefferson Airplane.
Wow, I remember that.
And the Sunshine Company at the hotel in one. I did that show.
That's funny.
It's crazy. And now you're asking about the Alexander roller ring.
Yes.